Bitter dogs, bitter criticism. Here we are with Skeletor, Berlina, and Rupertina. Rupertina over there. Oh, and I'm going to read Russia Today. China, Russia, US relations. Zero sum is gone for good. I'm going to read this one. Yep. China, Russia, US relations. Zero sum is gone for good. As Xi hosts Trump and Putin, Beijing is proving it can engage both powers at once without turning global politics into a zero-sum game. I don't know exactly what means zero-sum, but I'm going to find out. By Andrei Kortunov, philosophical doctor, PhD in history, Director General of the Russian International Affairs Council, RIAC member. And there's a photograph, a picture, Beijing, China, Xi Jinping. These days, all the world is closely following the high-level international meetings in China. U.S. President Donald Trump just completed his first state visit to China since his trip in November 2017. Well, that was his first term in office, I guess. And here we go. On May 19, another top foreign guest will arrive in a two-day state visit. Russia's President Vladimir Putin. Unlike his American colleague, Putin has always regarded Beijing as one of his preferred international travel destinations. Last time he was here, he was here was less than a year ago, in September 2025. The two sequential trips symbolize the growing importance of China as a global player. Beijing has become an indispensable actor in critical dimensions of world politics and economy. Subtitle: more than quote-unquote business as usual. The two summits are not a sudden and unexpected outburst of diplomatic activities. Since the beginning of the year, China has seen many top foreign statesmen, including South Korea's President Lee Jae-myung, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, his Canadian counterpart Mark Carney, and Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez, not to mention a long string of foreign ministers, defense ministers, and other high-ranking officials. While the sheer number of foreign leaders going to China is impressive, what is even more so is the diversity. Major powers and mid-sized states, close neighbors, and remote overseas lands, and global north and global south nations. The flood of high-level guests demonstrates the fast-growing breadth of China's international connections and its principles of equal and open major country diplomacy, featuring non-alignment, non-confrontation, and non-targeting of third parties. It also reflects China's clear stance, managing differences through dialogue, pursuing stability through cooperation, and promoting win-win outcomes through practical actions. It sends a strong message to the world that China has been consistently acting as a builder of peace, contributor to development and defender of international order, fulfilling its responsibilities as a major country. China's principles are reflected in the four strategic visions outlined by President Xi Jinping: the Global Development Initiative, Global Security Initiative, Global Civilization Initiative, and the Global Governance Initiative. Both Trump and Putin are very special visitors for China. The US remains the main superpower in the world, with a profound impact on the global international system. Americans are leading in many high-tech areas, from semiconductor design to quantum computing. Russia is a long-time close strategic partner of China and the largest foreign supply of oil and gas. Overall, China-US trade experienced a visible decline in 2025, but nonetheless accounted for 414.69 billion, with a lot of potential for further growth. The China-Russia trade was more modest but still impressive, $228.1 billion in 2025. From January to April in 2026, it demonstrated a nearly 20% increase and continues to grow. No wonder then what the May State visits of US and Russia's president go beyond diplomatic, quote-unquote, business as usual. If we take a closer look at the current state of China-US relations, China-Russia-US relations is a Beijing-Moscow partnership by definition hostile to US national interests? Question mark. Does China have to choose between Russia and the US? It's late American diplomat Henry Kissinger's approach to the global geopolitical triangle, maintaining good relations with China, taking advantage of its then distance from the Soviet Union, still valid, or should it be dismissed as archaic and misplaced? Question mark. Subtitle: No zero-sum game anymore. You know, this dog over here, it has problems with sound, with noise, like this one. Ah! Can you see? She got concerned with noise. But the question is, I guess if you put this dog to hear a lot of noises, I guess she will get familiar to it. Who knows? Well, such a large article. I'm lost. I'm lost here. The dogs want to move away to another hill. No zero-sum game anymore. Some claim that there is a natural affinity between China and Russia, nations opposed to US or other Western hegemony. Trump probably does not share this rather primitive world outlook personally, but it is nonetheless very typical for the US political mainstream, especially the segment closely associated with the Democratic Party. This rigid view of the world clearly does not hold water and contradicts the real world picture. The political and economic systems in China and in Russia are very different. China is a socialist country, while Russia has moved to capitalism since early 90s. Yeah, with the perestroika and I don't remember. Russia's political institutions have been created in the image and likeness of Western examples, not Chinese ones, not Chinese ones. Besides, social and political similarities have never guaranteed foreign policy unity. Maybe the real legitimate concern in the US should be about the deepening economic interdependence between China and Russia. But as mentioned, the China-US trade is almost twice the China-Russia trade. It is also much more diverse and involving large numbers of small and mid-sized enterprises on both sides. Beijing holds almost $700 billion of US Treasury bonds and is looking for a substantial increase in direct investment in America. Trump's visit will undoubtedly be a major boost to bilateral cooperation between the two most powerful economies of the modern world. However, the political and business leaders in Russia expect that at some point the China-Russia economic cooperation may fully match the current level of China-US interaction. To compare the present social interaction between China, Russia, and the US, there are over 277,000 Chinese students in the United States today, 5 times more than in Russia. Despite the new student visa restrictions enforced by the Trump administration and energetic attempts by Russian universities to get more enrollments from China, around 1.5 million tourists from China visit the US in 2025, while about 834,500 choose to go to Russia. Yeah, a lot of more. And one should not underestimate the powerful attraction of the US movie industry, pop music, and the English language. Are the US concerns grounded in the geopolitical proximity of Beijing and Moscow? The latter two nations often hold the same position in international institutions like the UN Security Council. They actively promote multilateral groupings like BRICS and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and jointly call for a multipolar international system. Still, this meeting of minds is not anything close to the monolithic Soviet-Chinese cooperation of 1950s. Beijing and Moscow are distinctly different nuclear doctrines. Beijing and Moscow have distinctly different nuclear doctrines and different attitudes to strategic arms control. It would be wrong to conclude that the relations within the China-Russia-US triangle can be described as a zero-sum game, a degree of competition between Moscow and Washington for attention from Beijing is unavoidable and natural, but it does not mean that the Kissinger approach will work out half a century later in a completely different environment. For instance, if China buys less from America, it does not necessarily mean that it will automatically buy more from Russia. If Moscow is successful in reaching out to Washington it does not imply that it will lose its appetite for upgrading its ties to Beijing. None of the three will be interested in global economic or financial instability, and economic ties and economic tide is likely to raise all the three boats, while an economic storm might wreck all three. Even on the most sensitive and potentially divisive matters like the conflict in the Middle East, there is considerable overlapping in China and US positions. None of them would like to see Israel wipe off the map, or the Strait of Hormuz staying closed indefinitely. That's very true, isn't it? Maybe China is helping Palestine to buy them. Understand? To not condemn Israel, maybe. To cooperating with both. Those dogs are more interesting. Yeah, sad. This white dog runs away when it hears some noise, any loud noise, or not so loud, but strange mechanical noise. This dog puts herself in danger. I'm not sure if I'm going to read everything. I'm going to leave here.